Okay.
So I'll give you the word to David and Rahel, please.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Francesca, for organizing this and for giving us a chance to use the DARIAH framework to get in touch with maybe a wider range of colleagues. Our schedule is very tight, so we will move on very quickly. Here is the program of the meeting. I should point out that we've had to move around the order of the first two presentations on projects due to a mix-up with European time zones between Romania and Germany, France. My name is David Wig-Wolf. I'm co-chair of the Digital Numismatics Working Group. I work at the Frankfurt office of the German Archaeological Institute, the Römisch-Germanische Kommission. And my co-chair is Rahel, who I would ask to say a few brief words.
Hello, my name is Rahel Ackermann. I'm the director of the Swiss Inventory of Coin Finds, that is part of the Swiss Academy of Humanities. And yeah, I'm happy to be here today and see you all.
Okay, thank you, Rahel. The purpose of the working group is just to bring people together who work in the field of digital numismatics. There's a whole wide range of topics that that we cover, but one of the main motors behind the whole digital numismatics movement is the numisma.org project. And I would ask Andy in just a few minutes to introduce himself and talk about that. I would like to just briefly show you also, I'm going to try and share something else. So I'm working on a rather small laptop and I'm having difficulty finding the, where is my, I don't seem to be able to find the page I want to show here for some strange reason. I will post, sorry about that. I can't find my browser window on my, on the machine here. This is very, very strange. Okay, I'll give that one up. But we have a blog. I will type the address of the blog into the chat. Apologies for that. And I would also type in the address of the DARIAH working group page on the DARIAH website. And would pass over to Andy to introduce himself and the numisma.org project, which is basically, as I say, the driving force behind much of the digital numismatics work. Andy, over to you.
Thank you very much, David. I'm sharing my screen now. I hope that's visible. Thank you, Francesca. Thank you, David. Thank you, Rahel, for organizing this and for inviting me to say a few words about the numisma.org project. I am one of the founders, I suppose, of numisma.org. We'll be talking a little bit about where that came from and when in a moment. I'm also a member now of the steering committee, which David and Rahel also exist on. And any questions you might have about numisma, you can direct to any of us. We're very much a group project, a collaboration, and all of us can provide information. On the screen there, you see a link, tinyurl.com YXHH2696. That, if you want to open that up in your browser, should take you to what is effectively a digital handout that accompanies what I am talking about, that provides links to a lot of the resources and projects that I will be alluding to and people will be talking about later. So if you want to open that up while I'm speaking, please do and play away. So that's YXHH2696. 12 years ago, the world of numismatics was a very fragmented one. Coins exist, of course, in huge numbers. They are multiple objects. They are mass produced. people naturally want to put them into databases when they start collecting the evidence and wanting to work with it to interpret it. And we had a world which was full of databases, all of which were existing in their own silos, none of which could talk to each other. This obviously is a massive missed opportunity. Bringing this data together in the modern world of numismatics is a crucial thing to do if we want to begin to think about this in terms of analyzing it and exploring possibilities of big data. So clearly, there needed to be a solution to this. And very clearly, it needed to be a solution that linked these databases together, that allowed everybody to carry on using the databases they had for whatever reason that was, whether it's because they were particularly useful to them in their structure or because their institution dictated that they use a particular database. There was no way we were ever going to create one database, so therefore the aim had to be to find a way to link different databases together. That obviously allows for databases to talk to each other, to exploit each other's data, which is all very good. But it also, and here I want to introduce a technical term, it creates the possibility for the super magic mega tool, the thing that can exploit all of that data to really begin to collect and use the contents of all these databases. And in what follows my presentation, we'll be seeing some examples of these super magic mega tools. Doing this. We've managed that by creating what you see there as blue and green arrows. That is the world we have got to, hooray. But how do we build these links? How do we produce these green and blue arrows, the green arrows between databases, the blue arrows to the super magic mega tools? That's where Numisma comes in. What we need is a language that allows the databases to communicate with each other. And very simply, languages need vocabularies and they need grammar. They need agreed sets of terms and they need agreed sets of relationships between those terms. Numisma.org, common currency for digital numismatics, was our original tagline, was founded in 2008 to create a knowledge organization system for digital numismatics, to create a vocabulary, to create an ontology, that is the grammar, and also to allow for links to other resources outside of numismatics. And that's
Andy, for me at least, you're breaking up a little. Maybe you want to turn your camera off and just use the microphone to save bandwidth. Oh, we've lost Andy. This is a great start to Zoom.
Mm-hmm. Great job.
Andy? Okay, we've lost Andy. Can we just wait a minute to see if he comes back in?
You don't have his slides, huh?
No, I don't have his slides, unfortunately. And it's what we really need at the beginning. We also have a time problem for Christian Gazdak. So, okay, what I would like to suggest is, because Christian Gazdak has to leave us at 11 o'clock, it might be sensible to bring in Christian, if you want to do your presentation now, and we'll wait to see if Andy gets back in. All right. So Christian Gazdak works on the Coin Hoards of the Roman Empire project based at the Ashmolean Museum in Oxford. And I would ask Christian to present a little bit about that project.
Thank you, and hello to everyone, and thank you so much for your kind understanding, David, and for the kind understanding of the others. I do have an administrative meeting with my department at the university here, and I have to share the discussion and also give an opening meeting. So I will try to be, well, 5 minutes talk guide this time. It's very hard for me as I was Secretary of Propaganda. David already knows this. So I will share the screen. Okay. And let me start. So I just installed Windows 11. So yeah, I hope it's working. Just let me go to the beginning.
Looking good. Looking good.
Oh, thanks God.
Okay, Christian, you have 5 minutes. Okay, I'm timing you.
Give me more and I'm happy. So it's, for me, it's a bit hard to talk about this because, as I noticed, almost everyone here already know about this project. So I will insist more on what this meeting is about, the interlinking. Few things to present, including the link that we started, like you can see now how the database is looking like. Look at the red digits now, and I think it's a pretty important database for any numismatist, archaeologist, historian going to use it for open access. And as Andy was already speaking about vocabulary and grammar, that's what we are trying to do also for SHRE. And special for today, I will also want, and I hope the internet connection will help me, to prove that yes, indeed, Numisma, it is a super magic, powerful tool, even for us in SHRE. I hope to prove it directly live online this time. So as you could see, we have a lot of fields to fill in, but we already working and interlink with these institutions already, both references, coin data, find spot, and all the other fields you will see here. On the ontologies, of course, we use map on the Numisma work, as you could see here, and I'm not going to insist on Numisma ontology as Andy is an expert here. Ethan is also here too. So you will see here immediately. The most important thing, beside links, we have a huge teamwork, including a large institution with people, which I would call them colleagues and friends as well. And I want to mention that we are increasing quite a lot the number of collaborations nowadays, and we are open to any new collaboration, as you could see. And many of you will see now your photos on the wall on this famous teamwork on the SHRE. So, as you could see, started in 2014, like a terra deserta. We came to 2016, 17, 18, 19, and nowadays, well, it's quite clear that if we talk about the coin hoards of Roman Empire, we can't stay limited within the Roman Empire borders. And that's how it looks, for instance, coin hoards outside the Roman empires, thanks to many, many collaboration of many of you here already present. So coming back to our database here, as you can see, there are plenty of categories to be filled in, all interlinked. And of course, for us, as the numismatists, you could see here on the detail how it works. For each coin, ideal, but this is part of chance finds as well as the publication of the material as well. So you can see easily here, including the references which are linked to various databases. So those who want to look even for further more details, where it is possible, they can just access the URI. And in this case now, as I have finished with the presentation, I would definitely like, if I still have few times, to show you how I was working on, for instance, if any of you, just let me go to the Coinage project a second. Right, it's looking, and I was currently looking on Caremicus.org, where thanks to Miroslav Net, we got the Excel tables. So, okay, now I will try sharing again. I hope it works with online. If not, then we have a problem. Sorry, I will share the screen, this one. Can you see now the screen I'm working on? Rahel? No.
No, I can't.
Again, sorry. Now, it's Windows 11, which I'm really trying now.
Yes.
Yeah, hey, am I not a fast learner? Despite my age, okay, perfect. So, as we talk about interlinking, let me look here. For instance, let's take one I'm going to work next. As you can see, Vespasian. So I press the edit, and it's already here the technical data, including RIC by second edition. So this super magic, Ethan, I hope, don't turn down your Numisma website now. Okay, so thanks to Numisma superpower, if I press the autocomplete via Ochre, 200%, it should, as you could see, Ochre lookup succeed. And here it is. As the description of the coin, including the dates. All I have to do now is update it, and you have the description for each coin. More than this, thanks to Numisma, let me go to page 2. Why? Because of the interlink with Numisma. If I would take, for instance, Hadrian, you could see, of course, Miroslav sent me the old version of RIC, which is RIC 98, for instance, and the same, you could see RIC 98. If now I press autocomplete via Ochre, it will take a bit longer time, and he says, oops, sorry, press A next to 98, because I know it's a head, it's laureate head. Then you would search again. The autocomplete, I hope it's working now, this one. No, apparently I have a connection problem. Yes, thank you. And now all we have to do is press, and we get the new dating and the new RIC number for Kamenica Hood for that coin of Adrian. Let me check after it's fetching the coin data. Page 2. As you can see now, the RIC, it's all description here, and the link to Ochre with the new 231 number in the new version of RIC Hadrian. So actually you have already the concordance between the two types. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Christian. And that's an excellent, can you stop sharing your screen?
Absolutely.
An excellent example of how we can interlink various resources using Numisma, and that's a really fine tool and particularly getting updates on the old Hadrian entries into the new edition. So we welcome back Professor Andrew Meadows from the University of Oxford, and hope that EduRoam keeps going rather better this time. Andy, over to you.
Thank you very much. Apologies for that. The University of Oxford letting me down there, or EduRoam letting me down. I'm not sure which. So vocabulary, a crucial element in linking the world together, as Christian has just been showing us. Nomisma exists not to create every word in existence, but those words which specifically pertain to us as numismatists. So concepts such as the mint, where a coin was produced, is something we are interested in producing, and there is an ID for mint. If you go to that page on the web, you will find a presentation like this, which shows you, first of all, one of the advantages of working in Nomisma as a world, that you can be multilingual straight away, but also we are a fully linked world in that we are providing references outwards to other resources. For example, here, the DBpedia entities plus vocabularies, other vocabularies such as that produced by the Getty outward links. We can also produce IDs for particular places, for example, that are associated with the production of coinage. Viminacium here, a late Roman mint. And we can provide links outward from that sort of concept to, again, other vocabularies, whether that be the Getty thesaurus, whether that be the Pleiades thesaurus. We can begin to link our concepts to the outside world. We can also do neat things like produce maps of where a particular place is, or where it exists within a taxonomy that we might want to use as numismatists. Moesia superior, in this case, is where we place Viminacium. We also have, as we have to, an ontology, the grammar that allows us to talk about the relationships between numismatic concepts. If we want to assert that a coin was produced at a particular place, then we have within our ontology the concept of has mint. There are a whole array of concepts that are specific to our discipline, which Nomisma provides identities for. Here is an overview of the types of entity that we host. And we do that across a growing number of fields of numismatics. So while the project had its origins, I think it's fair to say, in the ancient world, Roman numismatics, Greek numismatics, we are expanding outwards, and here is a current list of the fields of numismatics that are supported by Nomisma. That, of course, can grow as interest develops, and we'll talk a bit about that in a moment. If you go to the Nomisma website, you can begin to explore what we have already existing through the browse section of the website. If you want to know all the denominations we have in Roman numismatics, for example, you can filter there, and you can see we've got 93 currently. That, of course, can grow and grow in different disciplines. These concepts, these URIs that Nomisma creates, can then be used within the world of linked open data to build the sentences that we need to talk about coins and their relationships to other things. Here is a sentence that asserts that the coin you see in front of you, which is in the collection in New York, was minted in Viminacium. Very straightforward. And again, once collections are assigning stable URIs to their objects, we can begin to talk about them in these terms. And what that statement does is simply assert a relationship between these two identities, the ID, the URI for this object on the web, and the URI for the mint of Viminacium within Nomisma, making it clear to machines as well as humans that relationship exists. And once machines can understand that sort of assertion, then it obviously becomes possible for us to link together lots of different types of data. That's important to us in numismatics because we have lots of different places that we want to assert relationships according to the sort of work we're doing. Museums hold coins. People find coins out in the real world. We have an increasing number of finds projects across Europe at this point that are recording the finds from individual countries. Hordes turn up with great regularity within that context and also within archaeological contexts or indeed just by chance find. And of course, we have an apparatus, a scholarly apparatus that allows us to codify that information, bring it all together within an intellectual structure. The books, the reference works, the typologies, the catalogues of hordes, etc., all of which potentially are interlinked in one way or another, and all of which increasingly are moving towards digital versions, whether that be databases, type corpora, etc. So being able to assert the links between these things it becomes very powerful and indeed necessary on the web. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, we want to be able to link outwards to other forms of evidence for whatever world it is we're studying, in this case, the ancient world, but obviously that exists in other periods too. Once we've done that, numisma actually becomes a very powerful element in the whole process. Once multiple projects are using the concept of, in this case, the Mint of Rome, numisma can actually then pull that information together, as can any other project, because this is all open data and open source. And here, for example, is what a map of hordes and find spots drawn from the Portable Antiquity Scheme in the UK looks like for the Mint of Rome. You can go to numisma.org/Rome for yourself and see that, or indeed any other place that produced coin. So here is numisma. It is, as I mentioned at the very beginning, a collaborative project. We have no boss. We simply have a steering group at the top, and there is the current list of characters who are involved. Beneath that, we have notionally a structure that can be brought into use as and when necessary. A series of work groups already exist in certain categories of numismatics, in Greek, in Roman, that is looking at hordes, for example. A number of these work groups don't yet exist. There is scope for them to come into being. And I think one of our hopes is that through our interface now between the steering group and DARIAH-EU, this meeting, we can begin to fill out some of the gaps in this structure. And I know David wants to talk more about that later on. The results so far have been a significant growth in the existence of supermagic megatools. We've just seen one of those demonstrated to us by Christian. We are very strong now in the field of Roman numismatics. We are getting there in Greek numismatics. A big new project will land in the next couple of weeks. Watch this space. There is a wonderful new project soon to be launched on Spanish coinage. Iron Age coinage we're going to be hearing about a little bit later. The corpus Newmarum, another aspect of Greek coinage, we'll also be hearing about. So these projects that are exploiting these relationships now exist and have become very powerful indeed. Such that there are now, I think, more than 50 different collections, projects, databases across the United States and Europe that are contributing to the numismaverse, that are in many cases using the concepts served up by numisma, and I think are proof that we're on the right lines with this, and that we have created a world that is both sustainable and growing. And there is just a list of those. And I will shut up now and hand back to David to introduce more of these wonderful tools that are coming into being.
Well, thank you very much, Andy. And yeah, thank you for making it back in spite of Edu Rome's problems. One part of the whole Numismaverse that you mentioned is the Ontology. And at this point, I would ask Carsten Toller from the Big Data Lab, University of Frankfurt, who is basically our man for ontologies, computer scientists, rather than numismatists, although he often tells us more about numismatics than we to talk to us about the ontology.
Yes, thank you, David. And yes, my name is Carsten Toller. As David mentioned, I'm a computer scientist. I'm working with David since 2006, I think. And as Andy mentioned, this Numisma project, there's no funding behind, and that a computer scientist stays for so long without any funding shows that this is a nice group, and we normally have a lot of fun, to be honest. I want to talk a little bit about the ontology. I will repeat a few things that Andy mentioned, but now from a computer scientist point of view, to say. So we start with the concepts, and as you see here, and Andy already mentioned, we have a lot of connections and relations to other entities that produce those concepts, and who had a more special look on the slides of Andy saw that there was not always an exact match here. Sometimes there was a close match or a broader match or something. This is something we call that is used to connect those ID or concept spaces to bring them in a relationship. And this, of course, can also be used by any other people from other fields, not only numismatics, to connect with our stuff. So that's one bridge, let's say, between the worlds. And these bridging dimensions are, of course, in the normal dimensions like persons. They're not only on coins, there might be on pottery, there might be statues and stuff like that, and various others. Of course, it's, if you look at the single project with their single needs and their way of doing it, it's not so easy to really execute those bridges, because sometimes the granularity is different and so on. So the devil is always in the detail, but in theory, this should work. What we, for example, do, not having to do with the ontology, but what I did in a project, was taking the script, the natural language description of the images. Like here we see Apollo seated on Amphilos, and we first of all extracted the entities, and then we also extracted the relationship between the entities, which then can be used to really more sophisticated queries on the images in various ways. But as Andy also showed, we are also keen to try to use our tools not only for our purpose, but it might be useful to execute them also on other fields, like you see here on a vase for pottery, where you also have those small descriptions for what is shown on as an images on the entities. So this is on the concept level, and now we switch a little bit to the ontology. And here I first of all, for you, since some of you might be new to Numisma, give you a little bit of time frame to some extent, and also our reasons behind building the ontology the way it is at the moment. If you build ontologies and you have the chance to dig into what we call this RDF representation, you sometimes see this RDF range or even RDF range and domain. In those sentences Andy mentioned, you always have a subject, a verb, predicate in between, and a subject object. Sorry, and this predicate in the between you can define with this range and domain definitions what is allowed to put at the end or at the beginning of those properties. So they need to be in certain types and certain classes. And this, of course, then restricts the way how such a property can be used, because if the range is defined, you have to use as an object a certain type, or if the domain is specified, you have to use as a subject a certain type. So DC term is more vague. SCOS, that is what we saw as close match or related match, is much more strict in that sense. And some of you might have heard of CM that even goes beyond, because it tells the people how to model. So the ontology is part of the grammar, but it's not all about it. There's a little bit more, let's say. When we started the ontology or Numisma as such, we started without any ontology, and we were extremely flexible. We used concepts and we combined them and generated funny things. And over the time, we realized this might be too loose. But the goal was to keep the barrier as low as possible. And so we decided, we generated our first ontology version in 2015, but we had no range and domain definition at all. So some IT experts coming to our ontology always ask why there's no domain and range definition. And this is the answer: to be flexible and not to overwhelm the users, to say this is the way you need to think and you need to model. And the modeling, it's this how you combine those sentences, like Andy mentioned. Here you have the subject has manufactured the way how this coin was produced, it was struck. Okay. In the CM world, you would normally link those information to the event. It's event-based, to the event of the production. So the struck should probably need to connect it to this node and not to the specimen itself, right? So CM would also restrict you in how to model. We are extremely open, so you can use the ontology in any way you want. So we are not restricting you how to think, which keeps the barrier low. But of course, it generates problems if we want to merge stuff again, because if everybody is modeling a different way, it's very complicated to put the stuff together. For the data sets we generated from all those different institutions, David mentioned, Andy mentioned over 50. Basically, Ethan generated a description how to contribute data. So there we say, if you want to share the data under this data sets, please use this way, at least for the basic information. So this way, then Ochre and Pella and all the other institutions and projects can benefit from the data sets provided without any need to change. Okay, so this is technical thing, and here my we see if the properties are generated. Some of them are not even contained in the description Ethan generated, because some of the properties are just from certain projects. They say we have, for example, coin hoards, and they are in a vessel and they are in layers, so we need something to express this. So we sat down and said, okay, there's excavations, they have layers already, so let's use something. So we generated new properties to address this need. And this was, I think, the exception to the rule, what I just explained, because here we have defined the range and domain to see how the community also works with it and if it's accepted. And maybe we get more strict so that the connection of the systems is easier. Okay, that's the short introduction to the ontology, and I hope I didn't overwhelm you with this little excursus. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carsten. I think it's important to understand that we're not sitting on a numismatic island. Numismatists have in the past been very regarded, well, not just regarded, have actually been very insular, very separated from other disciplines. And this is one of the big advantages of what we're doing now, is that it brings us into the broader field of digital humanities, and being part of DARIAH reflects that. Okay, the next phase of the meeting now is a presentation of a number of projects. Several of these have been recorded by people in advance because they can't be here. And so I'm hoping, Rachel, if my internet connection collapses, I'll have to ask you to just take over and present things. But I will start off now with Courtney Newmar's presentation of Iron Age coins in Britain and the Celtic Coin Index. So over to Courtney.
There's no sound here.
Oh, it's it. Oh, no sound. Oh, this is a bit of a problem. Why is no sound coming? Because I've got the sound on my machine. Oh.
I think in the settings, there might be something that you can also transmit the sound from your computer. Because by default, it's not activated. Otherwise, everyone would hear echoes.
Okay. I wonder if I need to change the, actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing for a minute. I'm going to change my audio that I'm not using my headphones. Okay, that might have been the problem, that I was using my headphones. I will share the screen again and hope that this time it's going to work. Still getting my headphones coming up, aren't I? Hang on.
There's still no sound.
Still no sound?
So I would like to take a moment to acknowledge each member of our team and our project advisors here. Iron Age coins in Britain have traditionally been referred to as Celtic coins. They were believed to have been first imported to Britain from around 150 BC and remained in use as late as AD 100. Despite this relatively short time span, thousands of these coins have been found. To put it mildly, British Iron Age coins are all kinds of messy, and due to a lack of written history, there has always been debate amongst archaeologists and numismatists about where they were minted, who and what they portray, how they were used, and their dates. However, we are lucky in the UK to have a number of resources which have collected an enormous quantity of data on these enigmatic little objects. The first is the Celtic Coin Index, which was found. Since then, the CCI has been recording coins not only from finders and museums, but also from eBay and auction catalogs. This means that one coin could have been recorded multiple times as it appears in the public domain and then disappears again into private collections. Since 2018, we've been working to digitize the entire collection by scanning the physical cards, cleaning up the already transcribed data, and transcribing the data on recent cards through a crowdsourcing platform. We recently finished the scanning process, and the result is a digital data set of about 84,000 cards of 68,000 individual specimens. The online database of this resource, the Celtic Coin Index Digital, will be launched in March 2022. This standalone dataset is of course amazing, but it is even more powerful when it can be linked to other collections across the globe. The resource that makes this possible is our Iron Age Coins in Britain typology website. The IACB is a linked open data website that is based on the published typology Ancient British Coins, which has been widely accepted since its publication in 2010. At that time, it included 999 types. The IACB was created using the Newmar open source platform created by Ethan Gruber, and since its launch in March of this year, is now connected to other major collections such as those you see on this slide. So how does the site actually work? The IACB site can be browsed or searched using a number of predefined fields. Each type has a unique ABC number, and on the browse page, you can see a list of basic information in a specimen example. There's a search function that allows you to refine the entire typology contents by, for example, authority, denomination, or region. Other pages on the site provide background and contextual information, lists of contributors, and visualization tools. One of the most important of these pages is a detailed explanation of all the fields. These are particularly important for British Iron Age coins because, unlike some of the classical coinages, ours are decidedly complicated. Depending on who you ask, people will have different opinions on most aspects of these coins, from things as simple as what to call a denomination to more complicated aspects such as interpreting their imagery. For example, were there actually tribes in the Iron Age? Likewise, how do you define who the authority or ruler is? The specimens that are returned from an IACB search are drawn from the linked datasets of our contributors. These also appear when you select a single type. So here you can see all the linked data, a distribution map, and any examples of this type. There are a number of issues posed by sites like the IACB, which we are still working to resolve. In the UK, the Celtic Coin Index is inherently tied to the Portable Antiquities Scheme, which is also connected to the British Museum. So it's entirely possible that the CCI created a record of a coin that was recorded by the PAS and also ended up in the British Museum's collection, meaning that there could be 3 records of the same coin that appear in an IACB search result. Even more important is the question of sustainability. Without permanent staff to do so, who will maintain this resource, answer user queries, and pay for website maintenance? These are all questions that need answering, but luckily I've run out of time to ponder them any further in this talk. Thank you so much for your attention. Please do visit the IACB site and feel free to get in touch with any questions you may have. I hope to meet you all in person very soon.
Well, thank you very much, I think, to Courtney there for an excellent presentation. Yeah, we'll look forward to seeing everyone, I guess, in Warsaw. Let's hope. So, right, the next one coming up is, I hope, going to be the Spanish project run by Perepau Ripoles and Manuel Gonzalez, together with, there we are, together with Paco and Alex from Render, the software house. So now we move to Moneda Iberica.
The website monedaiberica.org is the digital catalog of the ancient coins of the Iberian Peninsula and the south of France, minted by more than 220 cities between the 6th and 1st centuries BC. It has been published within the framework of the European project ARC. Our initiative is related with 2 different digital environments. That's to say that we deal with the 2 sides of the same coin, the research tool and the website. Our model splits the internal data and the public data. Firstly, we've made a huge effort for developing a research system called Numismata, based on Daedalo, an open source tool. It is a web application that allows to work in collaborative environments with powerful capabilities for managing languages, users, and projects. By the end of 2021, the system registers a total of 600,000 records. Daedalo is the management system which uses web technologies. It is designed for numismatic research, but also serves for managing any other cultural heritage as well. It's open source, developed under open standards such as JSON, HTML, or CSS. It manages text, images, PDFs, and geographical data. It's multi-user, multi-language, and multi-thesaurus. We had to face some technical challenges like the web representation of Iberian ancient scripts or symbols that are not available under the Unicode standard. We also built a hierarchical catalog that allows to mix and rearrange contents from different sections of the system. Dédalo allows users to control the publication of contents in the website. But another important feature is that it is fully Numisma compatible. The information from sections and fields is automatically exported into an RDF format following the numisma.org specifications. But the ultimate goal of the MIB project is to create a website for all kinds of public, providing a friendly catalog and easy searching. We have published the majority of the content in the preliminary version of the website monetaiberica.org. The result is a big free access website presenting 4,000 coin types from the Greek, Punic, Iberian, Celtiberian, Swisscoin, and Lusitian cultures. The catalog is the core of the project. Every type is illustrated with specimens from important museums, public auctions, and private collections. Currently, the project gathers over 100,000 coins with images. The system includes over 40,000 bibliographic references. The website includes permanent links for its content and link externally to serve collections online, other projects, and bibliographic resources. MIB has an introductory text for each mint with bibliography, links, a map showing the circulation with all the finds and shortened layout of the catalog. The website includes a complete bibliography of ancient Iberian numismatics with 3,000 PDFs full of searchable text. We really want to offer open data, so we are following the Open API initiative, so anyone can connect to the MIB API to get the data directly from our server. The future is very exciting. Thanks, and enjoy visiting the Moneda Iberica website.
Well, thank you there to the guys and girls from Valencia. It's excellent to see how that project has now become fully realized with a great deal of cooperation from elsewhere. And Dédalo is an extremely interesting tool being used on a couple of other numismatic projects as well these days. So thank you, Pedro, Manuel, Alex, Paco, for that presentation. And we will now have, I hate to say it, almost we will have a human being talking again. So I would ask Ulrike Peter to share her screen and talk briefly about the Corpus Numorum online project. Ulrike.
Okay, can you see my?
Yep, looking good.
Okay, but the question is how I would see it. No. I can't see it.
No, we've got your browser window.
Not the presentation.
We see the full screen.
Yeah, you were almost there. I could see it coming up, the tab coming up at the bottom of the screen.
What? So now you see the presentation?
Yes.
Hopefully? Yes.
Yep.
Okay, fine. So then I can start and say something about the Corpus Numorum Online, which is a project hosted at the Berlin-Brandenburg Academy of Sciences and Humanities and carried out in cooperation with the Münzkabinett Berlin and the Big Data Lab of the Goethe University in Frankfurt. So indeed, we are privileged to have on board Carsten, who already presented the Numisma Ontology this morning. The CN portal is devoted to ancient Greek coins, yet it has a number of specifics, including its goals and functionalities that differ it from other projects alike. First of all, we have a clear regional focus. Currently, it is on 4 historical areas Mysia, the Taurs, and the territories corresponding to the Roman provinces of Thrace and Mysia Inferior. Under Greek, we understand and collect in our database all coins minted in these regions from the archaic period to the end of the Roman provincial coinage. Our online database incorporates not only coins available in Berlin and other collections and publications, but also material imported from other databases. And what is not so widespread in the sense of citizen science, it also gives collectors or other individuals the possibility to register their coins and thus making them available for research. Conceptualized from the outset as a research tool, our database allows for the scientific categorization of coins. The hierarchic data model takes into account the specimens, dies, types, and issues. Taking the Berlin collections as a point of departure, our project aims at building a digital corpus of ancient Greek coin types and is part of the overarching project Online Greek Coinage. Because type catalogs for most of the Greek coins are missing, that is a collaborative international endeavor, and Andy and Frederick care about with all other colleagues here, and also the Spanish project is part of it. So we take a pragmatic approach in defining what can be designated as a type, considering not only the time and place in which a coin was minted, its material, weight, standard, and denomination. As type-defining criteria, we also regard coin legends and designs, as well as additional symbols and monograms. Our IT experts have developed not only the website, but also the CN editor, a multifunctional web app that can handle the entire workflow, from creating a new fully illustrated dataset that employs authority data through linking with a variety of other resources to publication. Naturally, it has extensive search functionalities, including various indices and full text search, which allows for Boolean operators and regex expressions. The CN editor is also open source software, and source code is freely available on GitHub. In addition, there's a well-structured MySQL database. A lightweight modular structure allows the CN editor to be quickly expanded with new functions or to be adapted to other object types. This also makes it attractive for projects beyond numismatics, like Daedalus we just have seen. Needless to say that all relevant fields of our database are linked with Numisma, and thanks to the mapping to the Numisma ontology, our data can also be searched by a Sparkle endpoint. The menu navigation is available in all languages spoken today in the areas from which the coin originates. The description of the coins themselves are bilingual, English and German, and are standardized as much as possible. The aim of our new project, entitled Data Quality for Numismatics based on Natural Language Processing and Neural Networks, is to implement numismatic research tools that would be also useful for other disciplines that work with large visual and textual datasets. This includes methods of natural language processing, NLP, for multilingual and non-uniform coin descriptions, and their combination with an hierarchical iconographic thesaurus, as well as image recognition of individual elements and overall compositions using deep learning. For the understanding of coin images, the coding of the language, visual language, is highly important. Therefore, it is central to form an idea of what sort of imagery was used, where, when, how, and in what capacity. We started to develop a hierarchical iconographic thesaurus for Greek coins. In combination with the methods of natural language processing, this thesaurus helps to extract the semantics of coin descriptions and thus making a semantic search for the iconographic elements of coins possible. NLP also comes in because manual recording becomes unfeasible considering the enormous quantity of material available to us. Taking as an example, the 11th labor of Heracles, stealing the golden apples of the Hesperides, one will be encountered with striking differences in accuracy and detail with which this theme was taken up in different mints at different times. The coin iconography, as we have seen, should also be linked to the same subject in other categories of visual and textual evidence. Thus, linking to other iconographic thesauri will certainly ease the search of parallels to coin images in other kinds of visual evidence and provide a more solid foundation for our interpretations of objects and scenes that are difficult to decipher. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Ulrike. That's excellent to see how your project has progressed and expanded to take in other fields and take on board some great ideas. It's two things. I mean, first of all, the linking you're doing with other resources, but also it's nice to see how now with the last two presentations, how a variety of software solutions and projects can all be linking up together with Numisma, that this is not a one size fits all everybody, one size fits all project. So thank you very much, Ulrike, for that. We will now move on to the Middle Ages and return to a recording. And this will now be Christian Weiss talking about the Swiss medieval project.
Good morning, everyone. I would like to give you a very short introduction to OSCAR, the online Swisscoin archive. OSCAR is an online typology of all Swiss coins from the Middle Ages until today. It is an ongoing project, still in its alpha phase, but should be up and properly running, hopefully within 1 or 2 years. It is a collaboration of many partners, mostly Swiss museums, but also the Swiss Inventory coin finds. The steering committee consists mainly of the numismatic curators of these partner institutions, but there are many more involved. Well, why OSCAR? We wanted to include reference data following international standards, so we included numisma.org, the main reference data in the field of numismatic linked open data. We also wanted to have a tool with advanced search possibilities that allow tailored searches for different approaches. And we use NumiShare, a software designed by Jürgen Gruber that has been thoroughly tested in early typology projects, such as Crow or Ochre or Pelham. This also allows us to use the typology as meta-database, linking all the available online collections into OSCAR. As there is no one printed reference work that we could rely for OSCAR, we have to collect the needed data from all sorts of different articles, monographs, and archives. For this, we work on a shared Google Doc file with changes marked by a different color for each contributor. We sometimes have to rely on unpublished material as well to complete the reading of rare coin types that often are badly preserved. OSCAR is a pioneering project in the sense that it is the first numisma-based online typology that focuses on medieval and modern coins. The starting point for numisma was ancient numismatics, and many things that were perfectly fine with ancient numismatics do not work that well with the Middle Ages or modern times. A major task will be the transition from a monolingual version to a version that supports also French, Italian, and English, in addition to German. So where do we stand now? We are now at the moment finishing the revision of the digitized coin types, and we will be integrating about 7,000 coins from online collections into OSCAR at the end of this year. Thank you very much.
And so thank you to Christian Weiss there. And as he pointed out, this is an important move that starts to bring numisma into the Middle Ages, into the medieval period, which is going to be quite a challenge and something that we will certainly be wanting to talk about regarding working groups. It's a massive field covering, as Christian also pointed out, covering a wide range of typologies, for example, and so bringing in very, very new challenges. So the next presentation is by the inimitable Claire Rowan on tokens. So we're moving outside the field of traditional numismatics to a kind of paranumismatic field. And so over to Claire from the university. Oh, no, sorry, that's the wrong one. We want this one. Over to Claire.
Hi, my name is Claire Rowan. I'm from the University of Warwick, and I wanted to share my experience of using Numisma for a project that's not necessarily focused on coins, but on ancient tokens. And this was part of a project I had funded from the ERC. So I decided to use Numisma simply because it was sort of widely accepted within numismatics, and it was in a sense an infrastructure where a lot of stuff was already set up. I also found that as someone coming to Numisma sort of from the outside, I was able to contribute also to the ontology and sort of expand it to sort of suit my needs and my material. And everyone's been kind of very helpful in doing that. So to add things to Numisma, what I would do is create essentially like, a Google Docs Excel spreadsheet. This is one that I was making of token issuers from the Roman world, which is not yet in Numisma, because the issue of token issuers became a little bit complicated. But for various other things like materials and types of objects, I've created similar spreadsheets that have then been imported into Numisma and become part of the ontology. So I can attest everyone is very friendly and responsive to new projects and new needs. So for the tokens database, we use Newmar. This is a scene behind the scenes. We don't have an Ethan Gruber permanently on hand to transform our Excel spreadsheets into functioning databases. And also my project is really not about publishing an already existing corpus, but in turn, it's one that's creating a corpus. So we've sort of gone for this live data entry model, but I'll show you how it works. So we've got two databases. One is the token types, and one is the individual specimens of those types. So essentially, to use a coin analogy, this would be the equivalent of the RIC number, and these are all the individual examples that are in museums. So you can find the public facing interface is live, although our data entry is not yet finished and still continues, which is why it's not necessarily a very well published database yet. So for us to create entries, we go to create new coin or metal, and we put in record IDs. So for instance, if I was doing an Athenian coin, it's a Sporonos number. And so that's standardized across, the database. We make sure that the formatting of these is always the same. So same here, Sporonos 234, just to give you an example. And then what we have is the language, the ontology from Numisma is pulled into the database. So we immediately, by entering the data, already link it. So you can see the types of objects that now exist in Numisma. So amulets, badges, casting waste, that was us. Contorniates, that was also us. Dyes, flans, matrices, molds. This is also something we use in the study of making tokens. But you can sort of see even now toy money, what is available, tessera, if you want to use that, or token. So I would call this a token. And we put in both sides. And again, so by bringing up different options, you can, it connects into the numisma of the language here. For entities, so if I have a portrait, for instance, of Nero on a token, I can bring that up. And so here is Nero. Yes, the emperor is what I mean, select. I've also planned to feed in some additional portraits into numisma, which are found on tokens and not on coins. So yeah, you can see sort of what's involved. Authorities, for tokens, we don't deal with this. But for coins and other objects you would, and again you search directly with numisma and it pulls through. So someone who's not particularly tech savvy or doesn't have on-hand tech support all the time, we just sort of have short bursts at Warwick, having this sort of foolproof approach was best. And again, you can sort of choose search numisma for the region. So Greece is probably the wrong word, IKEA, for the region that the coin or token comes from. And we put references down here. Then for the specimens, go back to the collections list, same sort of idea. So you can create new coin or metal. And then what's fun if you're entering in a lot of specimens, I know this isn't necessarily the fastest route, but it's what us old academics like me like to do. Oh, sorry, I pressed the wrong thing here. If you have the URI of the type, so say I had a token and it was type TERS73, I can put that in here. So as the typological description of my token, I just put in the web resource, enter, and all the data is pulled through. So say this was like, I don't know, British Museum, like 1898, 21. And again, this is standardized across the database. You can bring in the descriptions there and put in sort of physical aspects of the objects, again, references, find spots. So in our database, we have put in quite a lot of find spots, and that connects to geonames. If you have a strange site, like an archaeological site that's not more widely known, you can put in the latitude and longitude yourself. I've had to do that a few times. And we can add in, of course, images as well. So the obverse and the reverse. And as I say, that basically brings us to the other side. And again, we chose to use Newmar simply because it was sort of standardized. But then the data then is all contained in numisma. So, and then for finds, you can create things, like maps, tokens, they're found everywhere. And then people who want to use the data can pull it out the other side using nuds, which, I'm slowly learning, Sparkle endpoints, et cetera, but those in the know do know how to do that. So this is just a very short overview to demonstrate that you can use numisma for more than tokens, and that the ontology is there to sort of be added to and expanded as needed. Thank you very much.
And thank you. Thank you there to Claire. I think that was a very nice presentation of seeing how the whole thing gets put into operation, what it looks like at the back end, not just the end result. I think that was very useful, and thank you very much, Claire, for that as well. So now we will now move on to human being again, and to the man who really has made this possible, to Ethan Gruber, who will now be, I need to just get the other tab up, talking again about another non-numismatic project
Caremicus, and we'll then go on to talk about the Roman Republican DARIAH project. I've been told we're allowed to overrun a little beyond 12 o'clock, so we aren't terribly pressed for time. Over to you, Ethan. Oh, and thank you for being awake at this terrible time of day in the United States.
This is what I get for procrastinating and not making my video.
Well, yes, it was your fault.
Yeah. So I'm going to introduce the Caremicus Project. Caremicus was founded by me with some colleagues at the University of Virginia back in 2013. And it is inspired by Numisma and really influenced by it. It basically uses the same framework. So just as coins are a rigorously cataloged discipline with a lot of typologies and concepts and that sort of thing, so are ceramics. And this project was created to be a sort of linked data thesaurus and aggregation of Greek pottery. And so in 2018, we finally got our first round of funding from the National Endowment for the Humanities to focus on building out Caremicus and focusing mainly on Greek or Athenian, archaic and classical pottery, and creating all of the necessary concepts for representing that discipline. So that's production places, shapes, techniques, styles, the artists, the painters and potters, as well as groups of schools or workshops producing pottery in Athens. And so, as you can see, this is quite a bit like Caremicus, where there's a browse page, there's a Sparkle endpoint and APIs and such. If I click on one of these URIs for the Achilles painter, who is a vase painter in Athens, you can see that there's some definitions, links to URIs in different vocabulary systems. We are aggregating data related to these entities. The underlying vases are all represented in SciDoc CRM, and the concepts themselves are in SCOS with linkages to SciDoc CRM for classes and such. But the objects are SciDoc CRM following specifically the profile established by linked art, which is accessible at the URL linked.art. This is a community-oriented project to define a standard specification of SciDoc CRM that can be more easily reused across different museum systems, focusing primarily on exchanging data with JSON LD syntax of RDF. And so we've followed linked art very closely as our data model as well. The archaeological data model, for context, follows the Ariadne data model for SciDoc CRM, and Ariadne is an EU archaeological infrastructure project. So when we aggregate these objects, you can see that there are finds. We have about 8,000 vases in the system so far, from several major collections, and that's a prototype of what we've accomplished. Most of the images that we have are in IIIF, so they're high resolution and zoomable, like so. This allows us also to do some basic statistical analyses. So if I'm interested in the types of shapes that the Achilles painter was decorating, I can click shape on the drop-down menu and generate a chart, and I can see he's particularly interested in decorating Lenkathoi versus these other shapes. I'm starting to develop a linked art sort of viewer, which is built into Caremicus at present, but I hope to make more generalizable in the future. So this is basically an object viewer page for individual objects. And eventually I would like to create a faceted browse interface that can be reused, not just for pottery, but for coins as well. The use of IIIF for these images means that we can also implement standard annotation. So one of the next projects for us is to work on iconographic annotation, and that will begin to join ceramics with coins and sculpture and other forms of cultural material. That's essentially where we are now. All of this framework functions, and we're looking for more partners who are willing to establish working groups to branch out beyond archaic and Greek pottery into other periods and cultures of ceramics production. So thanks.
Thanks very much for that, Ethan. And it'll be interesting to see you link up maybe with Carsten and Ulrika on their natural language processing project there in Berlin. And I'd ask you to carry on. Do you want to talk about the Roman Republican coin die project briefly?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Okay, so as you've seen so far, there are already there are a lot of typologies and a lot of physical specimens linking in typologies. And so the Roman Republican die project is sort of the next level of information on these objects. So a die is basically a physical engraving of the obverse or the reverse of a coin. And there are generally one or many, typically many dies created for an issue. And people interested in economic history want to estimate the number of dies that might have been used to create an issue. And then from that, they can extrapolate how many coins may have been part of an issue for economic historical purposes. So this particular project builds on the coinage of the Roman Republic Online, which was launched in 2015. So this is a typology based on Roman Republican coinage, a book published in 1974, which is a complete typology of the Roman Republican coinage. And like most other projects, we have specimens and such. So if we scroll down to the Bibliothèque Nationale coins, what you see here from the Bibliothèque Nationale, the diameter and weight and accession numbers and such, these are all distinct facts, objective facts that come from the museums themselves, which are sort of the authoritative holder of that information. Now, a die is a second set of more subjective statements about a coin. And so when a scholar, in this particular case, a scholar named Richard Schaefer, spent 40 years aggregating in binders and cards about 300,000 specimens in public and private collections, assembled them in these binders, and then just poured over them for basically his entire life, trying to match them up. It's the largest die study, as far as I know, ever conducted by any one person. So if we take a look at these images, which are scanned and in our archive and delivered through IIIF image servers, these numbers correspond. So there's this S is the obverse die. Number 4 here is the die number for this obverse die. So each of these obverses and reverses on this coin have a number or a letter or some kind of identifier. So what we've done then is created URIs that represent all of Richard Schaefer's dies. And then once we have these URIs and associate them with coins, This is basically a representation of Schaeffer's own sort of mental construct of a die link. And we ingest these into the Numisma Sparkle endpoint into a named graph that reflects a URI for Richard Schaeffer as an editor in Numisma. So this allows us to then make, and another scholar could come by and make a completely different set of die links, and we can ingest those as well. So this allows us to have multiple sets of subjective statements about the same objects. So this allows us then to create charts, network graphs of die links between obverse and reverse dies, and to count the number of specimens for each of these die pairings. So this particular obverse number 8 is paired with reverse D 16 times and reverse G 8 times. So if we head back to Coinage of the Roman Republic online, there's now some network or a table that aggregates all of these die links that have been made so far and the numbers of specimens linked to them to create a table showing how many die pairings there are for each of these unique pairs. We've also put up a separate database to capture some of these specimens that only exist in these auction catalogs because they're in private collections now. So these images here were basically annotated in IIIF and are being pulled from our IIIF server in real time. So if we navigate this database, which is in NumaShare, it's basically a specimen database of private auction materials, and we can click on any of these and it functions just like a collection with links to back to Crow and links to RRDP back to the individual dies, and where you can see more information about die pairings and network graphs and that sort of thing. So that's where we are now. I think we have about 4,000 coins out of the whole 300,000 annotated in this way. We're focusing mainly on the coins between, say, 95 BC and 80 BC and the social war and Sulla, period of Sulla. And from there, we'll just branch out. And it's a really long-term project. So thanks.
Thanks very much for that, Ethan. It's again, it's good to see a different direction being taken within the framework of Numisma, and it's good to see what a great variety of projects are now up and running using the infrastructure and what's going on in the field of digital numismatics. Now we're going to have, I guess, about another 15 minutes, something like that. One topic that we need to talk about is going to be working groups, to give you some information on what's going on with the working groups at Numisma. But I would also ask anyone who, at this point, anyone who has any questions on any of those projects to type questions, probably best type questions into the chat, or when we finish the working group presentation briefly, to raise your hand virtually. So Andy, you'll probably want to talk a little bit about this as well. Maybe you want to come in too, but I'll just bring up the working group slide that you put together, and we can talk briefly about the working groups. Andy showed this slide. Oh, I think my screen share has not worked properly. I'm going to try it again. At least that's what Zoom told me. Okay, yeah, this is the slide that Andy showed a little earlier about how Numisma runs from the steering group through the working groups. Working groups that the working groups that are really active, Greek, Roman, Provincial, Iron Age, they're really up and running very well. but we're starting to move into other areas, as you can see, and we'll, the one that's going to be really complicated is the medieval periods. We've had this decision really that we need to divide it by modern nations. So the French will be responsible for mints and coinages on the territory of modern France, or the Danes for modern Denmark. I think that avoids a lot of difficulties with moving boundaries and avoids problems there. But basically, we'll be looking for people to come in and join on these working groups. The idea being there to define the concepts, to see what new concepts are needed in order to cover different fields of numismatics. Courtney Newmar mentioned the fact that Celtic Iron Age coins, it's very difficult to have a denomination. So how do you deal with things like that? Andy, would you like to say anything about the working groups? If you're there, if Edu has left you.
I'm still very much here.
Good Lord, Andy, good Lord.
Not a great deal more than that, I think, other than to say that we are absolutely open to anyone who would like to volunteer their services to any one of these areas, or indeed if there's an area missing, then to adopt it and try to bring it forward. The principle essentially is that the experts in particular fields should meet together, decide what is necessary for that field, for that particular field, and that we then discuss that within the steering group to make sure that there is consistency insofar as possible across Nomisma as a whole. But our aim is really to be as lightweight as we can possibly be in terms of an organizational structure, such that identities can be created as quickly as possible. Ethan may want to say more about this, but he's designed a back end for Nomisma that allows people, once they are registered as editors, to begin to produce the IDs that are necessary for their projects. So we aim not to be a bottleneck, but actually a facilitator.
Yeah, I think that's a very important point, Andy. We're very much a community that's with a pretty well no hierarchy. Anyone who wants to contribute is a full member of the network, of the community, and we'll be looking for people to come in and join. As I say, particularly on the areas that we're just starting to work on, and one of those is certainly the medieval period. At this point, I'll stop sharing my screen, although I will just briefly, can have another go at least showing on my desktop. This is I hope you are now actually seeing the blog page that we have, Numisma hypotheses.org here at the top. The blog is as yet very rudimentary. But for example, here, today's program, and it's split into two bits really, the Numisma and the DARIAH working group. But on the Numisma page, this will be a place where we can put up we'll be putting up who's contact person for individual working groups, people you can get in touch with should you want to join a working group. So keep your eyes open there to have a look and see what's going on, what fields we're opening up, and how you can contribute. Get on the blog. I put the web address into the chat earlier on. Ethan, would you have anything you'd like to add on the working groups or anything like that?
No, not really.
Okay.
We're in the process of doing some website redesign on Numisma to make it more transparent about how one can join a working group or contribute data in some way.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah, we're looking forward to the relaunch of the Numisma webpage. So I think at this point,
may I say something?
Yeah, Rahel, please do. Yes.
As not all of the people in the auditory now might be numismatists, I hope you have seen that how numisma.org can be used for other fields as well, other periods, other topics can be linked to numisma.org IDs, and then we have a new contribution to the huge wide web we are aiming at for the antiquities, for example. That's one thing. And then Caremicus, that's very important. You can use this NumiShare framework for other items as well, as long as they are nicely structured, for example, for Terra Sigillata or for Roman fibula or for whatever you want. The framework digests all that as well, as long as you get in contact with Ethan Kruger at an early point of your project.
Yeah, thank you, Rachel. That's an important point, that it can be, Ethan's framework is very flexible, can be used for a lot of different fields. We do have time for questions or a bit of a discussion. It may have been just a little bit overwhelming, a bit of a flood of what's going on. But please, if anyone has a question at this point, has a query or wants to make a point, please either put it in the chat or raise your digital hand. Otherwise, after 90 minutes, people get a bit tired in the Zoom and it's getting ready for lunch. But please, if anyone has a comment, a question. Looks like everyone is thoroughly overwhelmed at this point. Okay. Bit of a shame, but anyway. We can, I think we can wrap it up there, Francesca. Okay. Thank you very much for hosting us on the via DARIAH. That was very useful. It was very nice to see people here who are outside the field of numismatics, that being part of what DARIAH is about, linking up with other areas in the digital humanities. Thank you to everyone who has been speaking, to everyone who had made a recording as well. And thank you to all of you for listening. Rachel, Andy, would you like to say a final word or two on your part?
Just thank you very much for organizing this. And if anybody does want to talk about anything, please do reach out to any of us.
Okay.
And on my side, so this has been recorded. So this will be published on the DARIAH YouTube channel, I think in a couple of weeks or so. So you'll be able to watch it again. And as David said, and Rahel, please get in touch if you want to join the working group and follow the activities.
Yeah. Yeah, oh, that's something we rather forgot to say. There's not just the, I mean, if you want to be involved in the DARIAH working group itself, we're looking for people who are really looking to be actively involved. We're a bit of a parallel setup. But the DARIAH working group also gives you a framework for example, for project applications, so that you can get a link to an official European infrastructure. And Francesca, there's just been a question whether we can, are you going to save the chat?
Yes, so the chat is saved with a recording in a separate file.
Okay, well, I'll send out the link to the blog and things anyway on to everybody. So thank you very much, Francesca.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, bye everyone. Bye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, everyone. Thanks very much for being there.